The Galactic Council's Grand Hall was the most important place in the galaxy. Leaders from 100 different species sat around a giant silver table. Their faces were serious. Today, the topic was not politics, trade, or new planets. Today, they were talking about death. High Chancellor Vorik, a tall creature with green scales, stood up. His voice echoed across the hall. "We face a danger greater than any war," he said. "The Dreadmaw still roams free." A nervous wave moved through the room. The Dreadmaw was not a myth. It was real. A living nightmare. Bigger than any battleship, its skin was harder than diamond. Its roar could shake entire cities to dust. Entire fleets had tried to stop it. Entire worlds had fallen. One by one, the council members spoke. "The Vrothi Empire lost 3 moons to it," said one. "My people sent a fleet. Only pieces returned," said another. "We tried mind control weapons. They did nothing," said a third, his voice shaking. The hall grew colder with each story. They all knew the truth. No one could control the Dreadmaw. It lived by its own rules. It destroyed whatever it saw. It feared no one. Chancellor Vorik banged his staff on the ground. "Enough," he shouted. "We must find a solution. If we do not, the Dreadmaw will erase us all." Before anyone could answer, a young messenger rushed into the room. He was breathing hard, holding a small silver disc. "Forgive me, council members," the messenger said, bowing. "But you must see this now." The council allowed him to step forward. He placed the disc on the table. A bright blue hologram rose into the air. Everyone leaned closer. What they saw made their hearts stop. It showed the Dreadmaw, the true beast, massive and terrifying, standing on a dead world. Black smoke floated around it. But that was not the shocking part. Sitting calmly on the Dreadmaw's back was a small figure, a human. Not in heavy armor, not with weapons, just a simple suit and helmet, riding the galaxy's deadliest creature like a peaceful traveler on a horse. The room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the bravest leaders forgot to breathe. Finally, Elder Xothar, an ancient being made of light, whispered, "Is this real?" The messenger nodded quickly. "Yes, Elder. The footage is live. The human has tamed the Dreadmaw." Chaos broke loose. "Impossible," shouted one counselor. "Humans are too weak," screamed another. "Some trick, some trap," said a third, his voice full of fear. But no trick could explain what they were seeing. The Dreadmaw, the beast that had crushed armadas and eaten entire cities, stood perfectly still, gentle under the human's touch. Chancellor Vorik raised his hand. Slowly, the hall fell quiet again. "We must know," he said. His voice was low but powerful. "Who is this human? How has he done what we could not even dream of?" The messenger hesitated. Then he said, "We are still gathering information, Chancellor, but early reports speak of a human named Captain Reed." "Captain Reed." Vorik repeated the name slowly, as if tasting it. The council sat back, stunned. Humans were a young race. They had good technology and brave warriors, but they were still new to the galactic scene. No one expected a human to do what empires could not. Outside the Grand Hall's windows, the galaxy spun in endless blackness. Somewhere out there, a single human sat on top of a living weapon that could destroy them all. Fear crept into every council member's heart. If the human could control the Dreadmaw, what else could humans control? What else could they do? An old saying came to Chancellor Vorik's mind. "It is not the strong that should be feared, but the unexpected." He looked around at the other leaders, proud kings, mighty generals, wise scholars, and saw the same thing in all their eyes, fear of the unknown. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had no answers, only questions, and the biggest question of all hung heavy in the air. Who exactly was Captain Reed? And what did he plan to do next? The story of Captain Reed did not begin with power or fame. It began on a small blue planet called Earth, a world full of dreamers, fighters, and survivors. Captain Jacob Reed was not the biggest man, nor the strongest, but he had something many others did not. He never gave up. From a young age, Reed believed that understanding something was more powerful than trying to crush it. When the news of the Dreadmaw's destruction first reached Earth, panic spread like wildfire. Governments met behind closed doors. Scientists stayed awake for days, searching for a solution. Many said it was hopeless. But Earth's Defense Council thought differently. They created a secret plan, known only to a few. It was called Project Titan Tame. Their goal was not to kill the Dreadmaw, but to control it. When the project leaders looked for the right person to send, one name kept coming up: Captain Reed. At first, Reed thought it was a joke. "Me? You want me to talk to a monster?" He laughed. But the council was serious. "You are not like others, Reed," said Director Han. "You think differently. You understand things others fear." Reed agreed, not because he wanted fame, not because he wanted to be a hero, but because he understood one simple truth: if no one tried, the galaxy would burn. The training was brutal. Reed studied every known creature in the galaxy, from small hunters to giant world eaters. He learned how animals think, how they react to fear, to kindness, to strength. He practiced alien languages. He learned body language of beasts bigger than mountains. He trained his mind to stay calm, even when his heart screamed in terror. For 6 long months, Reed prepared. Meanwhile, far from Earth, the Dreadmaw continued its path of destruction. 3 more planets fell. No fleet, no army, no technology could slow it down. Finally, the day came. Inside a small stealth ship, Reed traveled alone to the dead world where the Dreadmaw was last seen. His ship had no weapons, only scanners and survival gear. As Reed approached the planet, the scanners screamed warnings. Life signs, massive, ancient, terrifying, filled the screen. The Dreadmaw was there, waiting. Reed landed on the cracked surface of the planet. Dust storms roared around him. The ground trembled under heavy footsteps. And then he saw it. The Dreadmaw. It was bigger than he ever imagined. Its eyes glowed like dying stars. Its teeth were sharp enough to slice warships in half. Its roar shook the bones in Reed's body. For a moment, fear gripped him. But Reed remembered his training. He took a slow breath. He stepped out of his ship. No guns, no armor, no shield, only himself. The Dreadmaw lowered its giant head, curious. It sniffed the tiny human in front of it. Its breath was hot and smelled of metal and dust. Reed did not run. He did not raise his arms in threat. He simply stood there, steady, and whispered words not of fear, but of peace. "You are not alone," he said softly. "I see you." For long minutes, nothing happened. The Dreadmaw stared at him, its great tail twitching, its massive claws digging into the ground. Then, slowly, the beast bent its knee and lowered itself to the ground. It was a sign of trust. Reed took a step forward, then another. He placed one hand on the beast's rough, scared skin. It felt like touching a mountain. The Dreadmaw did not move. It accepted him. And just like that, a bond was formed, not of chains, not of fear, but of respect. From far above, hidden satellites captured the moment. The galaxy watched in silent awe as a simple human, standing no taller than the Dreadmaw's claw, climbed onto the beast's back. The impossible had happened. A human had tamed the untamable. But the galaxy was not ready to accept this new reality. As Reed and the Dreadmaw moved together across the stars, fear grew. Whispers spread in dark rooms. If one human can do this, what else can they control? Is Earth hiding more secrets? Should we stop them before it's too late? In the shadows, old enemies began to plan. Captain Reed's journey was just beginning. And the galaxy would soon face a choice: fear the new human power, or join it. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. At first, there was disbelief. Could it be true? Was it really possible for a single human to control the Dreadmaw, the most dangerous creature ever known? But soon, the evidence became undeniable. The footage of Captain Reed riding the beast was shared on every communication channel. Some saw it as a miracle. Others saw it as a warning. In the Vrathi Empire, Emperor Zorath slammed his fist onto the table. "This cannot stand," he roared. "A human controls the Dreadmaw. How? This will not be tolerated." His advisors whispered in fear, "We need to act, Your Excellency. If this human can control the Dreadmaw, he might be able to control other beasts, or worse, entire fleets." Zorath's eyes narrowed. He wasn't one to be afraid easily, but the idea of a human wielding such power over something so deadly unsettled him deeply. "We'll send a fleet," he decided. "Destroy that human before he becomes a real threat." Meanwhile, on the distant planet of Xylon, Commander Vren of the Terralune fleet paced back and forth in his war room. His people had long feared the Dreadmaw, and now they feared humans more than ever. "We have to understand their power," Vren muttered, staring at the screens showing the human and the Dreadmaw. "If one human can tame a creature like that, what's next? Could they control our fleets?" His officers remained silent. They, too, were gripped by fear. On Earth, Captain Reed knew something was coming. He could feel the tension in the galaxy, the growing distrust. The Dreadmaw, ever loyal, remained by his side, sensing the change in the air. Reed's first days on the Dreadmaw were peaceful. He traveled through empty space, exploring desolate worlds, using his bond with the creature to calm it whenever its rage flared. But soon, Reed began to realize something darker. Somewhere in the shadows, powerful forces were moving. The same forces that had destroyed planets, erased civilizations, and caused endless wars. They now saw Reed as a threat, not because of what he had done, but because of what he could do. And so the first message came. It was a quiet warning, a simple transmission sent from an unknown source. "Leave the beast, human. This is your final warning." Reed stood by the Dreadmaw, staring at the message on his communicator. The beast growled beside him, sensing the danger. But Reed wasn't afraid. He had been ready for this moment. He knew it wouldn't be long before someone would come after him, try to take control of the Dreadmaw, or destroy him entirely. He was too dangerous now. But what they didn't know was that Reed wasn't alone. He had something more than the Dreadmaw on his side. He had the universe's most powerful weapon, willpower. The humans were not like other species in the galaxy. They had a resilience, a refusal to back down, no matter the odds. That spirit, that drive to push forward even when the universe said no, was what made Reed dangerous. Not the beast, not the technology, but the human spirit. Reed sent a reply. "I won't leave. Not now. Not ever." Across the stars, in secret war rooms, leaders watched in silence. They didn't know what to do next. Some feared what Reed represented, the unpredictable force of humanity. Others feared what might happen if they didn't stop him before he could unite his power with more deadly creatures. As the fear spread, whispers turned into actions. The Vrathi Empire sent its first strike. A fleet of warships, massive and armed to the teeth, came barreling towards the coordinates where Reed was last seen. They didn't expect a fight. The Dreadmaw, after all, was thought to be unbeatable. But that had changed now. Humans had done the unthinkable. The fleet arrived at the coordinates, their weapons ready. The commanders of the Vrathi fleet were eager to capture Reed alive. If they could bring him back, maybe they could force him to control the Dreadmaw for them. Maybe they could use him to control more. But when they arrived, they found something they hadn't counted on. Captain Reed wasn't alone. The Dreadmaw stood by his side, its massive eyes watching them. But more than that, there were other creatures too. Huge, terrifying beasts that only legend spoke of. creatures that had once roamed the darkest corners of the galaxy, now bending to Reed's will. The Vrathi fleet hesitated. This was not what they had expected. Before they could react, Reed spoke, his voice calm but clear across their comms. "Leave now. The galaxy is not your playground. If you attack, I will make sure the Dreadmaw is the least of your problems." A chill ran down the spines of the fleet commanders. They had no idea how to respond. The Dreadmaw growled low, sending a wave of terror through their ships. They weren't just facing one monster. They were facing an entire army of untouchable beasts, all led by a single human. And in that moment, the galaxy knew one thing for sure. Captain Reed was not just controlling the Dreadmaw. He was controlling the fate of the entire galaxy. The Vrathi fleet had made a grave mistake. Captain Reed and his beasts stood firm, facing down the warships. There was no fear in Reed's eyes. There was no hesitation in his voice. "Leave now." His words echoed across the battlefield, calm yet full of power. For a moment, the Vrathi fleet hesitated, but the fleet's commander, General Koren, was not easily intimidated. He had seen beasts before. He had destroyed entire planets to make his empire stronger. One human would not stop him. "Attack," Koren barked. The first volley of weapons fired from the Vrathi fleet, a burst of laser beams and missiles aimed at Reed and the Dreadmaw. But the creatures surrounding Reed didn't flinch. The Dreadmaw roared. Its body shifted, moving faster than any being of its size should. Its massive claws swung, knocking the incoming fire away like it was nothing more than dust. The smaller creatures Reed had tamed, massive armored beasts that once roamed planets as unstoppable predators, charged forward. Their roars and howls shook the air, sending shockwaves through space. The Vrathi fleet was not prepared for this. They were used to crushing their enemies with overwhelming firepower. But now they were facing an army of untouchable monsters, each stronger and fiercer than the last. The first wave of Vrathi ships began to break apart. Their shields couldn't withstand the sheer force of the Dreadmaw's strike. One ship after another was torn to pieces, its debris floating in space like forgotten wreckage. Reed stood tall on the Dreadmaw's back, watching the destruction unfold. But he wasn't celebrating. He wasn't a conqueror. He was a defender. "This is your last chance, Koren." Reed spoke through the comms, his voice echoing in the dead silence that followed the chaos. "Leave. Now." But General Koren was stubborn. His eyes burned with rage. "We will not be cowed by a human," Koren spat. "You control beasts, but you cannot control us." As the words left his mouth, he gave the command to launch their final strike, a massive wave of missiles aimed directly at the Dreadmaw. Reed didn't move. His eyes narrowed, and for a brief moment he closed them. He knew what would happen next. The missiles were fast, too fast. But the Dreadmaw was faster. With a single powerful swipe of its claw, the Dreadmaw moved so quickly it was a blur. It sliced through the missiles, turning them into fiery sparks in the vacuum of space. The fleet commanders watched in horror as their weapons, their pride, were completely neutralized. General Koren's heart raced. He had seen destruction before, but this was something else. This was not a war. This was a massacre. Reed's calm voice pierced the silence again. "I warned you. Leave now, or I will make sure your empire crumbles." This time, the Vrathi fleet commanders were quiet. They knew they were no match for Reed and his army of beasts. The last remnants of their fleet scattered, retreating into hyperspace to escape the wrath of a single human. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The defeat of the Vrathi fleet was more than just a military victory. It was a message. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer just a small, distant planet in the galaxy. They were becoming something far greater. As Reed stood on the surface of the dead planet, watching the retreating fleet disappear into the stars, he knew the war wasn't over. It had only just begun. This was only the beginning of something much bigger than a single victory. Across the galaxy, many began to wonder, what other secrets did Earth hold? What other creatures, what other powers were waiting to be unleashed? And what would happen if humanity and its beasts decided they no longer needed to hide? The Vrothi Empire had been defeated, but many more would come. Those who would try to control Reed and his creatures. They would come with weapons, fleets, armies, and Reed would be ready. Because now he wasn't alone. The rebellion had begun. The galaxy was shaken. Captain Reed had defeated the Vrothi Empire's fleet and sent a message that echoed across every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. But with that victory came the understanding that many more enemies would come, and they would be even more dangerous. Reed and his beasts had become a symbol of power and fear. As Reed and his army of creatures traveled through the galaxy, new alliances began to form. Some species, those who had long been oppressed by the Vrothi and other empires, now saw hope in humanity. The great beasts, tamed by Reed, had become a symbol of rebellion and strength. But not everyone saw Reed as a hero. The Galactic Council, now fully aware of the danger Reed posed, decided that they would not let humanity continue to grow unchecked. In the heart of the Council's massive space station, the highest leaders of the galaxy met in secret. They knew that if they didn't act soon, Reed's influence would spread even further, and they would lose their grip on the galaxy. "We cannot let one human control the fate of the galaxy," said High Chancellor Lazara, her voice sharp with authority. "We've seen what he's capable of. We've seen his power. The Dreadmaw alone could destroy entire fleets. But if we allow this to continue, he will control everything." "What do you suggest?" asked Councillor Gorth, his voice low. "We've tried to destroy him. We've sent fleets, armies. He destroyed them all. What do we do now?" Lazara's eyes narrowed. "We need to make an example of him. We must strike now, before his influence spreads further." It was decided. The final battle would come soon. Meanwhile, on the edge of the galaxy, Reed sat quietly on the back of the Dreadmaw, watching as his beasts hunted in the wilds of an abandoned planet. He could sense something was coming. A storm. He could feel the shift in the galaxy, the rise of new enemies, the tensions growing in the air. And then the message came. "Reed, you are not welcome here anymore." It was from the Galactic Council. Their ships were already on their way, massive warships designed to crush any threat. Reed knew it was time. He could feel the weight of what was about to happen. This would not be just another battle. This would be the final stand. He turned to the Dreadmaw, his companion, his ally. The creature growled softly, sensing the tension. "Prepare yourself," Reed whispered. Across the galaxy, news of the impending war spread. The Galactic Council was sending everything they had to end humanity's rise once and for all. It wasn't just about Reed anymore. It was about sending a message to every species in the galaxy. No one could challenge the Council's rule and survive. As the enemy fleet neared, Reed gathered his forces. He wasn't alone. The creatures he had tamed, the deadly beasts of legend, each one stronger than the last, gathered at his side. Reed had become more than just a leader. He had become a symbol of rebellion, a symbol of freedom. The battle began. The first wave of enemy ships arrived, their weapons blazing. Reed's beasts charged forward, tearing through the enemy's lines like they were made of paper. The Dreadmaw led the charge, its claws ripping through hulls and tearing apart shields. But the Council was prepared. Their ships were armed with the latest weapons, capable of damaging even the toughest of creatures. They attacked with precision, targeting Reed's beasts one by one. It was a brutal, relentless assault. Reed felt the weight of every loss, every beast that fell. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He had come too far, and too many lives depended on his victory. The battle raged for hours, each side pushing forward with everything they had. But slowly, Reed's forces began to gain the upper hand. His beasts, though wounded, were relentless. The Dreadmaw continued to strike fear into the hearts of the Council's forces. Finally, it came down to the last moment. Reed, standing on the back of the Dreadmaw, faced off against the Galactic Council's flagship. Its weapons were aimed directly at him, ready to obliterate him and his beasts once and for all. But Reed wasn't afraid. He raised his hand, signaling the final charge. His creatures, his army, surged forward with a roar that shook the stars. The flagship's shields faltered under the assault. Reed leaped from the Dreadmaw's back, landing on the enemy ship, his weapons drawn. With a single decisive strike, Reed pierced the heart of the flagship's core. The ship trembled, then exploded in a flash of light that blinded the surrounding battlefield. The Galactic Council had been defeated. The war was over. Back on Earth, Reed stood tall, gazing out at the stars. The battle was won. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and oppression. Humanity had proven that it was a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council, once the most powerful authority in the galaxy, was no more. The rebellion, led by a single human, had shattered their grip on the galaxy. As Reed turned away from the battlefield, he knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity was free. But now, they would shape the future, and the universe would never be the same again.